Hello, and welcome to the No One Iron podcast. I'm your host, Lily Busby, and today I have Joe Hutchinson with me, an Alliance candidate running for the council elections in May. In this episode, we are going to talk a little bit about who he is, why he feels the need to step up into the political stage, and a bit about the role of young people in Northern Ireland's politics. So, hello, Joe, and can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, hello, thank you for having me on. As you say, I'm a member of Alliance. I've been in Alliance for the last 6 years. I'm from the age of 14, and I am from the North Coast. In a village called McCoskun, just outside of Korean. So I've been in Alliance since I was 14, which that make me 20 now. Some would say that's very young to be in a political party. I work in hospitality at the moment, and that's where we're up to now.
And why do you feel it's important to run as a candidate?
Well, my experience as a young person, at the beginning of my political journey, a lot of people kind of saw it as a phase. People said, oh, you don't need to go into politics, all that there. People said, you should be going to university, getting a good job, and when you're in your 40s or 50s, more life experience, go into politics. But I think it's important because young people are underrepresented. When you look at Stormont, for example, there's under the age of 35, there's 5 or 6 MLAs. If you look at a council, there's one councillor who's born after the Good Friday Agreement. Young people are underrepresented, and we also have very important views and very important issues. But after being involved in politics for the past 6 years and meeting many people, I think it comes back to that if young people get involved, our issues are out there and people start to realise that young people are politically active. As this generation's the most politically active generation, I believe, that there's ever been.
And do you feel that if there's more young people going into politics, do you feel that will encourage more young people to vote?
Yes, definitely. I just know from personal experience that I have had lots of young people message me and stop me in the street, and lots of people I went to school with say, oh, that's fantastic, no, I'll give you a vote. And then they're saying to me, oh, can you help me actually decide who else to vote for? Can you help me actually, because they don't actually understand the process of voting because they're not taught about it in school. So I think young people running for council in Stormont and Westminster, and even just being activists, it does encourage young people because then they start to ask those questions, well, this person looks like me and sounds like me and is from the same background as me, so maybe I can get to the point where I'll go vote for them and maybe I'll learn a bit more about it. And in the long run, I think right now, young people are let down by politics, but I think the more younger people that do make that step over into politics and activism as a whole, then I think we're heading in the direction where young people are going to get more involved, yeah.
And how do you think young people are let down by politics?
I think it comes back to that old thing where the average age of a politician is not 20 and it's not 30. It's in the UK, you're looking at it's 50 or 60. It comes back to there was the political party in Alliance, our deputy leader just said to me one time that when you look around politics, there's a lot of people with grey hair. He also said he's one of those, but I'm sure he won't mind me saying this. But 3 years after that, at our party conference, he says if you look around now, it was like the amount of young people are not just doubled, it tripled. Getting young people involved in politics, it's really hard because when you look at maybe the leadership of different countries, you have people like Joe Biden, you had Donald Trump, that was 2 older men that were fighting against each other. In the UK, you had Jeremy Corbyn, Boris Johnson again, 2 older men. But there is hope when you look at people like Jacinda Ardern, New Zealand, a very young woman. It's like people like that do encourage, but there's still a stigma against young people not only getting involved in politics, but actually speaking up on issues that matter to them.
And would there be any challenges you would face as a young person entering politics?
Well, yes. When I started getting involved in politics about 6 years ago, it was a lot more challenge then as it is now, because what I got told is you don't have enough experience. I was told you're better to go to university, then get a career, join politics in later life, and then you understand a bit more. But I decided no, that wasn't for me. I wanted to be part of that change now, because I saw that Northern Ireland, the current slate of politicians we had at that point, just it wasn't representative of me. And I noticed that young people, they were tired of the same old green and orange, the same old bickering. And when I decided I wanted to get involved in politics, people told me, "Oh, but young people are the future." Sure, when you get older, you say that, but your young people are here now. That like climate change is going to affect us. Equal rights, the Ukraine war, all these issues happening now. We can't wait 20, 30 years to have our opinion. Now's the time to have our opinion and hopefully have an impact on that. I wasn't 18 when the Brexit vote happened, so I wasn't able to have my say. But I had people in my own family as well that said, "Oh, but you're too young to make a decision." Well, when it came to it, I was able to lay some of the facts that they didn't know. So obviously, young people do know, they know what they're talking about. It's not as if we've just created this idea that we want to vote on everything, we want to know everything. We know what we're talking about, and the Brexit vote was one of those. I think in the UK, about 2 million 16, 17-year-olds weren't able to vote, which now they are. And I do believe that a lot of them would have voted differently, but their voices weren't heard. But you see in Scotland, where 16, 17-year-olds were allowed to vote in the elections, and you just say they voted for more progressive parties. So it seems to be a thing where establishment parties don't want younger people to vote because they know younger people, when they're younger, because younger people are affected by those issues, but there's very little young people in Parliament to represent their voices.
So do you think the exclusion of young people in votes has consequences to society?
Oh, definitely. It's even when you look in the UK, Brexit, for example, mainly younger people didn't want it. The issue is we're seeing the effects of that now, even the climate change. And again, climate change always comes up, but it's something that our generation are going to deal with 30, 40 years down the line. It's people in their 60s and 70s, they're the people in Parliament that's voting on it. They're not going to be people who's going to be living with it. The same with housing crisis. The cost of a house now is extortionate. If I wanted to buy a house in my hometown, I couldn't afford it. But there are people a few generations before me who maybe have one house and a holiday home. It's kind of that weighing up of people that are a bit older, not all of them, but some of them were a bit older, have better pensions, have a better lifestyle, and younger people won't be able to measure up to that because they're not the ones making the decisions. And because we're not making them now, people in our generation will suffer down the line. And it's why more young people do need to be represented in Parliament and also in activism. But it's the same when it comes to more women, more LGBTQ, more disability people. People need to see people that look like them and sound like them and represent them.
And do you feel a lot of the older politicians and party leaders, do you feel like they would listen to the youth?
Definitely. I think, like, Neil Malone, personally, I think she's a fantastic leader, and she would have meetings with our youth. And, for example, I'd be on party executive, and our party executive is 50% of people in Alliance Youth, and that's not by design. That's just because Alliance has young people in it, and we voted onto it. So yes, there's regular meetings. There's Alliance Youth has a lot of influence in the party. And Alliance is obviously a very progressive party. Stephen Fry and Neil Malone do take on board young people's views. And of course, we have the youngest MLA ever, Owen Tennyson. So young people's views in our party, I would say, are very well represented, yeah.
Do you think all parties should have such an elaborate system as Alliance does with dealing with youth? Do you think parties such as the TUV should maybe make their youth ring sort of more known?
When you look at parties like the DUP and the TEV, I'm not sure if they struggle to get young people or they don't make it a point to amplify their voices. But both parties, and I think it's a problem with unionism altogether, that they do struggle to bring that youth voice in, which I don't think it's any fault of the parties, but I do think it's the fault of the issues to speak on. I think the DUP and TEV have made probably a wrong decision talking about everything from flags to the protocol. I think the BTA may have a right approach to going down that more soft unionism, that more liberal route, where young people, that is a message young people want to get behind. I think the DDP and TV, I think the message is real if they want to get young people involved. I think that's why the SDLP and Alliance, no Unionist Party, and even the Green Party as well, they do attract a lot of young people.
And what do you think parties should do to try and attract young people?
Well, it comes back to the same way. Have a system set up that young people not only need to be told, right, come along, give you views, but they need to design a system. They need to tell the politicians and the leaders, well, this is what we want to do. This is how we want to decide it. And it comes back to that thing about messaging. Young people just want opportunities. They want a better education. They want to be able to see a doctor. That's why we have a lack of schools, a lack of hospitals, because there's nobody there to use the services. Because sadly, young people are going to the mainland, where yes, the politics isn't fantastic over there either, but at least it's stable. They do have opportunities for young people over here. Because over here, I see so much opportunity, but sadly, that opportunity is being wasted. And I think if young people do get involved more in politics, and politicians involve young people more in the political parties, then hopefully the voice of young people can make this place better.
And is there anything you want to do if you're elected?
I want to be a voice for young people, because everybody obviously their voice is important, but in the council we don't have very many young people speaking up for other young people. I think we just need that representation. And I think with it comes young people issues.
And how big a difference do you feel this will make to young people if they get more representation?
Oh, massive. When you look at Stormont, for example, it's having young people up there, people from all parties, it's brought that more young person's perspective. One young person isn't enough for a population of about, an area where about 15 to 20% of people are in that same age range.
And is there anything you think that the older politicians are missing out? So any issues you think are being overlooked by the older politicians?
Yes, even when you look at it, it's not even that they're overlooking the issues, they're undervaluing the issues. They're not understanding how important the issues are. And there's also the fact of the housing crisis, where they're saying, oh yes, we're bringing them down by this date. Well, by that time, I'll have a job over there. We can't do it now. So it's not even that politicians aren't. Of course, there's issues that politicians aren't. It's not on the radar, but there's issues that politicians do know about, and they are working on them, but they can't see it from a young person's perspective. And I think that's what someone like me and other young people would bring to the council and bring to politics wider. That we also understand the issues, but we see it a different way, and we know how important it is to young people.
So, what alternatives would there be, rather than just giving dates for things to be done?
The problem is young people aren't in the room. If young people are in the room, then their voices are there. That cuts out that extra part. Young people can say, a lot of young people bring up stuff that maybe older people will miss. So whether it is the housing crisis, a young person will have a different experience than an older person. You do need that young person's voice in the room just as much as anyone else's voice.
And is there anything you would say to encourage young people to vote, even if they think the situation is hopeless?
I would say always just in the back of your mind think it can always get better. No matter, Northern Ireland is in a situation right now where we have no government and public services are effectively collapsing around us. I would say to young people, read the manifestos, go online, research them, even call up your local politician, do anything. Go out and vote on what they're going to do about the NHS, how they're going to improve your education, how they're going to effectively improve your community. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. Voting is the main way that young people are going to get their voices heard. And without voting for people that represent you, well, then you're not going to get represented. Probably one of the most important things as a society we can do, that young people need to go out and vote and hopefully make Northern Ireland have a better 25 years than we've had the last 25 years.
Well, thank you for joining me today. And thank you, the listeners, for tuning in. If you're listening to this and you're a political representative from another party and you want to feature on a future episode, feel free to message the No 9 Pod on Instagram or Twitter. Stay tuned and we'll talk later.